Hey, performer, welcome to the Creatively Performing Arts podcast. Are you ready to get back to your creative passion for singing, acting, and dancing again? Hi, I'm Estelle, beginner voice coach, performer, and Christian creative, and I know how it feels to want to use your God-given gifts, but to stay stuck in fear. The solution is to just get started. So, in this podcast, you'll find beginner singing and performing tips, inspiring interviews with artists, and help to push past your fear so you can finally start performing again. So pause your Broadway playlist and take a vocal rest, because the show is starting and you're the star of it. Let's begin. Hey, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. It's Estelle. Happy Monday and happy Martin Luther King Day. I hope you had a great weekend and I hope you are getting to rest some way, somehow today. I hope you have time to reflect on how far God has taken us as a country when it comes to racial equality and how far we still need to go and how much justice still needs to be established in this country. And yeah, I hope that we can all keep that in mind and be grateful and also be hopeful and intentional about moving forward and making sure that we are advocates for justice, right? So, anyway, all that to say is happy Monday. Let's get into this conversation today. I'm excited. Before we get into that, just so you know, actually, my mind is going all over the place, but this interview is with an actor, Tiffany Byrd Harrison. I'll introduce her officially in a second, but we did this interview like last month slash like a lot of these interviews coming up have happened either December, November, October. Like they have been there. I just had other interviews that needed to be posted, and so it's a good problem to have. It just means that I have so much great content for you that I can't wait to share with you. So make sure you stick around, and right now, actually, go ahead in your podcast app and click the subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I know that it's a plus at the top right hand corner of the podcast. That way you won't miss out on any upcoming episodes and interviews, okay? So before I introduce our guests for today, I want to let you know that we're doing a free workshop for building confidence as a singer and performer. It's going to be Thursday, February 2nd, and I want you guys to go ahead and join the Facebook group called Performing Arts Community. It's in the show notes below. There's a link there. Go ahead and join that because that will automatically sign you up for this free workshop. And even if you aren't able to, say for instance, you're not able to make it that evening for whatever reason, you'll get the replay sent to you. So make sure you don't miss out. It's going to be so fun. We're going to really go into how do I sing? How do I love my voice enough? How do I know that I can be confident enough to go on stage? Like, what do I do? How do I prepare beforehand? What voice warm up should I do before I sing when I'm practicing? And then before I sing when I'm performing, how do I know that a performance is going to be good? How do I tell the story well? How do I communicate well? And we're actually going to like put it into practice for anyone who's there and wants to. We might try out a song or two. Of course, it's only going to be an hour long workshop, so we'll see. But it's going to be fun. You're going to learn so much, and you'll be with other people who are doing this together. We are all growing in our creative God given gifts that we can now put into action and become more confident in. And so I want that to be what happens for me this year. And if that's what you want to happen for you this year, then first of all, amazing. And second of all, join us. Don't miss out on this incredible free opportunity to grow as a singer and a performer, okay? And invite a friend, okay? All of you come join the Facebook group. We're going to have fun in there preparing and preparation in these next couple of weeks. Like, we're just going to have so much fun. So make sure you join and get ready for this fun workshop February 2nd, Thursday. It's going to be awesome. All right, I'm so excited to bring you my conversation with the Tiffany Byrd Harrison. Tiffany is an actor, comedian, and content creator who also founded Redemption in Media, a production house curating films of hope that are honest and transformative without being cheesy. I'm so excited for you to hear our conversation. Listen in. Without further ado, Tiffany Byrd Harrison. All right, I'm here with Tiffany Byrd Harrison. Hey, Tiffany, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing so good. I'm so excited to chat today. Very looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. Me too.
Guys, Tiffany is so funny. And
Already, we are off to
yes,
the races.
yes, I'm just like, look, Tiffany is so funny. I don't even, I can't remember the first reel that I saw you do on Instagram,
Mm.
but I was hooked. I was like, this girl is hilarious and she's creative and she's an actor. I was so drawn to you. And she's a Black woman who's doing her thing unapologetically,
Mm.
standing in her faith. I was just so like, I was like, yes, I want to be best friends. Like, I want to be friends with her.
Thank you so much. That is very kind. I'm glad people are taking from my ridiculousness online. Always a good thing.
It's good to people want to see people being themselves and living fully. It's really living fully as God has called you to be, in the process of becoming more of who God has called you to be. Like, that's what we want to see.
Yeah,
And people are drawn to people who are genuinely themselves. And so I think that's why I was just drawn to you. So
I love it.
I can't wait to get into your story and talk with you more. So Tiffany, tell everyone who doesn't know like what you do, um a little bit about your journey as a creative, as a person so far. Just give us a little spiel, a little overview about who you are.
Yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, I am a digital storyteller, which is just a fancy way of saying I make videos online for YouTube as well as content creation on Instagram and different things like that. But I would say my journey is such a, like, I feel like it's like everybody's story, right? You start off very young and you already have somewhat of a knack. Maybe you're a class clown, maybe you're someone who's artistically inclined, you're a dancer, singer, whatever. I was all the things. I was just loud, you know, I had a lot of mouth. So I think even from the beginning, when I was really young, my mom kind of noticed that I was teaching myself to dance and to act and to play characters by watching TV, by watching commercials. And I really kind of parlayed myself into public speaking because, again, I had a lot of mouth. And so public speaking seemed to fit for me. I did a lot of emceeing when I was in high school and middle school, and I had a lot of teachers kind of pushing me that way to be like, use all of that energy for something productive. So
I
theater
love
kind of,
that.
yeah, it naturally, I feel like, happened because people were like, we got to get her to do something with all of that. And so I started doing theater in high school and I fell in love with it. I loved the idea of being on stage. I loved the idea of using your full volume to get to the back of the house. Like, I thought all of that was really cool. So I did one play in high school and then I went and auditioned for theater programs. It was like everything changed in an instant. I was going to study French and diplomacy, international relations. And I was like, nope, nope. Acting is it, theater is it. So I changed everything and I got into the programs and I decided to go to Virginia Commonwealth University, which is a school known as VCU in
You're
Richmond.
kidding.
I'm
How did
not.
I not know this? I went to VCU.
No way. Did you really?
Girl, I
How?
graduated in 2019. How did you not know
What? We
this?
need to like do more research. Clearly, we were not
Literally, we
prepared.
were not prepared
Go
for this,
Rams,
guys.
go. Now, did you
Go
go to school?
Rams,
Did you go
yes.
to school for theater as well? What did you go to school for?
No, I studied psychology. I was
Wow.
psychology pre-med with the music minor for a couple of voice minor. So I
Okay.
did sing a lot. I grew up singing, grew
Yeah.
up in the arts, grew up in theater like you,
Yeah.
dancing like you, but I went a little bit more of like a practical route at first. I was like, I love psychology. I love mental health. I still do.
Mm.
And I still know that I'm going to weave that in somehow, but I've always known I was a creative, and so it just took a while for me to really take ownership of that and for God to be like, no, this is the path I have you on for your career, not just as a hobby, which is wonderful as a hobby, and still deserves intentionality. If you want to do it as a hobby or as an
Mm.
outlet, that's still wonderful. But I knew that God was really pushing me and is continuing to push me and guide me along towards making it a career, and so I still embraced it and like engaged in it in college, but I was
Mhm.
definitely more on the psychology and the sciences, like academically, that's what I was really doing. So, but it's so funny that
Yeah.
we were literally at the same school. Guys, we did
Yes.
not know this.
That's amazing. Well,
Unplanned.
even better because VCU people know what it is. Like, we
Yes.
just, I mean, you go to that school and you come out with some fire. But
Yeah.
the truth is, like, we'll talk about this probably later, but
Mhm.
I really feel like being a creative person or being an actor or being an artist, whatever you consider yourself, like, it does kind of bleed into everything you do. So even if you're doing something more practical or corporate, you're not going to lose that. Like, girl, I worked so many corporate jobs and they were like, where did you come from? You don't fit the corporate mold at all. Because I was so excited about life, but also I was excited to infuse creativity into everything I did, which kind of leads me into after college. I went and pursued a lot of side hustles, but I also was professionally working as a stage actor. I did a lot of regional shows, I did a lot of equity shows. So there was a lot that I got to kind of do in musicals. And then I got burnt out on that, because what you'll find is Black women often in the musical theater realm will kind of put in a category, right? You're playing the same types of roles, slaves, and you feel like you just need a break at some point from being the Black girl singing the soul. So I kind of took a moment and I was like, okay, God, what would you have me do with all of this? And I moved into production, started doing videos and learning. I never even knew how to use a camera a few years back. And I just felt like the Lord was like, hey, you need to start using your camera. My husband was nice enough to buy me one. So he got me this camera. I started playing with it. And literally the world shut down maybe 4 months later. And I had no idea by transitioning into video that I was making myself kind of invaluable as an asset as we moved into the pandemic. So that's really where YouTube started. That's where content creation started. That's where my love of video and storytelling really started. And I realized now, landing as an actor and all those things, I'm just now slowly transitioning back into auditioning. But that really came after a whirlwind of learning so much about how creativity can be used in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's so beautiful because I wrote down moment of burnout, turn to God, right? Like this moment of like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Where you chose to, of course, turn to God and then pivot. And a lot of people would look at that and be like, oh, I can't pivot, or I can't, this is what I've been set to do. So like it feels scary to change your
Mm.
path. I mean, I know what that fear feels like to change your path,
Hmm.
because I've been there. But you know, in that moment when you were like actually in the middle of COVID
Hmm.
and you started to use your camera, like, did you feel like, oh, I didn't go to school for, TV or film production or whatever, like I haven't taken classes in this or whatever, like that idea of starting something new or
Hmm.
starting to do that, and even now, like when you're starting to audition again, you're like, okay, there are some things that might feel kind of rusty, but you're starting again. And this podcast is really about like helping people get started again, people who
Mm.
grew up in the arts, loving it, but maybe went away from it because it wasn't practical, or they felt it was selfish to use their gifts, the things that they love to do or whatever. Now they want to come back to it and they have that fear of pivoting, or
Mm.
they have that moment of like, I don't know, like, can I do this? Um, what would you say to that? Like, what were the things that were kind of going through your mind though? Like when you were, okay, I'm gonna start using my camera again. I'm gonna start, or for the first time rather, I'm gonna start doing this. I have no idea what's going on. Like, how did you move past whatever maybe fears that you might have had? Did you have fear? What was that like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll be honest. I got that camera in my hand and I said, absolutely not. I did not go to school for this. There's a lot of buttons here. Like I really felt so fish out of water. And if you're any type of artistic person, even if you've done stage work before, you can be like, I'm not afraid to get on stage and bare my soul, but then getting in front of people that you know well can be difficult. Or vice versa. You might be someone who's super confident in one area of your creativity, and you try to transition. Like if I can dance. If I try to transition into roller skating, which was all the rage during COVID, I'd be a deer in headlights. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I think for me, the initial thought was, oh dear God, what am I gonna do? And then the second thought, like right after that, maybe zero point 0.5 seconds later, was I'm gonna fail as fast as I can. Because the faster I get to that failure, the faster I'm gonna get better at this. And that was the only thought I really had. I literally said, I'm not afraid to make myself look stupid in front of people while I learn how to do this thing. I'm not afraid to look a little silly and for my videos to be a little messy, which they were. They were a mess in the beginning, but I was so determined that and I think that's really what pivoting is all about, right? Like pivot as a dance move is all about turning that 180 degrees, and if you need to 360. I think pivoting in life and in artistry is really like get as quickly as you can, get away, like get a turn away from I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna fail, I can't do this, and turn towards I'm gonna try, I'm gonna get better, I'm gonna grow. That was the pivot that I made. I didn't even necessarily make a pivot technically. I made a pivot mindset wise, I think, really in my perspective.
I love that. It's really so much about your perspective and your mindset. And I was thinking about like you said, like the actual dance move of a pivot. If
Yeah.
you if you pivot slowly, or like if you like turn more slowly, sometimes it's easier to get off balance, right? Versus if you like
Yes.
go faster and you just like
Commit.
and literally commit, and like you
Yeah.
spot, and obviously you have technical things that you're doing. You're spotting,
Yeah.
you're using your core to stabilize yourself and whatnot. But the faster you do it, the more likely you're gonna have that stability, or like be able to complete the turn. And so I love that you
Yes.
use that kind of metaphor. That really clicked for me. Like I love that
Yes.
about doing it quickly, and really trusting. Like you had that faith, be like, you know what, like this is where I know God's calling me to go. It's where I know he's calling me to go. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And the end result is going to be what it's supposed to be. So I love that.
Yeah. I just want to throw in one thing too,
Mhm.
Estelle. I think what's interesting is a lot of people feel like they have to know, artists especially. We want to know, right? We want to know the choreography, the song, the lyrics, whatever. The truth is, I didn't really know how this was going to end up. Like, I had no idea if it was going to be, but I think committing at the height that I did, and I feel like a lot of people noticed this after the pandemic, you can wait to commit or you can commit. They're both painful, but you might as well go with the one that's going to move you towards one direction. I feel like God can't really honor the faith that you don't step out on. You know what I'm saying? Like he can't really honor that. So it's really hard for me to suggest to someone, even if they don't fully know, to like take a slow, like, no, fail fast, fail forward. Because the truth is, even if you're wrong, God's going to redirect you. He always does. But he can't redirect somebody who's kind of hesitant and like, I don't know, I don't want to make a mistake. It's like, he going to let you do that while, until you get on board.
That is so good. I literally, I love what you said. Um, the faith that you don't have, like God, how can God, move the mountain if you don't have that mustard seed of faith, if
Right.
you don't have any sort of belief, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, the verse of the day, actually, in the U version, the Bible app, for
Mm-hmm.
anyone who doesn't know, there's a Bible app called U version, and there's a verse of the day that they do. And today's verse of the day was the verse in Hebrews about, faith is the substance of things not, is the
Hope
evidence
for.
of things hoped for. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence of things not seen,
I
substance
saw it
of things
today
hoped
too.
for, evidence of things not seen. Yes. It was in the message version, so it kind of like tripped me up, and I was like,
Oh,
oh wait,
yeah.
I know this verse. I know this verse. But yes, and it's so beautiful that that's what you're talking about now, is
Mm,
about true faith. Like you literally cannot see the end goal, and that is that like blows my mind every time, because I feel like I feel like a lot of times, like you said, like we as artists, we definitely want to know the answers. And faith just feels so like obscure, and like it just
yeah.
feels like something you can't touch. You But when you believe it wholeheartedly, that's true faith. You believe it wholeheartedly even when you can't see it. So I would love to know though, like, since you took that step of faith to pivot, so then what have you seen? Like what's been the outcome so far, since you started that in COVID, started making these videos? What are the videos about? How have they kind
Mm.
of, over time, over the past couple of years, we're kind of moving, we're still in COVID, but it's definitely different than what it was then. So how has it changed? What was it then and how has it changed? And like what's the power behind these videos for you?
Hmm. That's a great question. When I started, it was interesting. Like, I took the faith step. I was excited by that. I was invigorated by it. It was something new. And then slowly but surely, the reality hit of what I was committing to. Because when you start something, you're always so excited. You're like, yes, I'm in it. I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. And then a month, 2 months, 3 months go by, and you realize, okay, there's a lot of insecurities, a lot of inner stuff that I got to deal with in order to put something quality on camera. So like what I mean by that is like when you're a performer or you're singing, dancing, acting, and you're in front of an audience, you can sometimes feed off of the energy of the audience. You can feed off of people's attention. When you're making videos, it's a very different experience because you do not have that energy to feed off. You really have to psych yourself up and you have to be so inner convicted about what you're doing. And if you're not, like, let's say you're not feeling it someday, which happened a lot. I wasn't feeling it. And then I'd have to make something and go, okay, why is this garbage? Right? Like, why is this video not good? And I know why. My energy's low. I'm not in a great place mentally or emotionally, spiritually. I don't feel filled. I feel like God is far from me. So all of that is coming out in that product or in that final video. So I would say at the beginning, I definitely like learned very quickly, this is something that has to be sustainable. And I think this is true for every artist, every creative person. Their practice, it really is a discipline. Like, you're not just always forever effervescently like excited and thrilled and on your game. You have to take care of your body. You got to take care of your mind. You have to eat well. You have to sleep. You have to do all these things on top of keeping your mind and your thought life in check so that you can produce out of abundance and not out of lack. And I found myself producing out of lack time and time again. And I would always turn to God and be like, why am I burned out, God? What's going on? I'm just in my house. What's happening? And he would always turn me back and say, because you are trying to do this in your own strength. And that is not where your creativity comes from. That's not where your artistry comes from. Your artistry comes from me. Therefore, you have to be connected to me in order for this to come out the way that we are co-laboring on it. So I like really hit a wall and then immediately realized, oh, if I just rest in the Lord, this is going to be so much easier because he gonna carry with me. Like, God likes to work with artists. I don't know why we think that he doesn't. He likes working with creative people. They're gifted by him, but also there's a prophetic piece on creatives that he gets to give you and your body and your mind and your voice and whatever your artistry is. So I started to really lean into that. I think now, to answer your question about kind of the now and what I'm seeing, God has opened so many doors, Estelle, so many doors in a way that like I would have never expected from making my little video in a bedroom. And I remember when I started, I thought, okay, I got to make all sermon videos. They got to all be, biblical messages, deep, spiritual, profound things. And that's cool. Like, if that's who you are, great. That's amazing. But the Lord was really clear with me that that wasn't necessarily what I'm not a preacher. Like, I'm not a pastor. So there was no need for me to do that. He was like, why don't you just show up in light in the things that you know that you're good at? So my videos now, I feel like the power of them really comes from a place of working out my faith, right? With fear and trembling. Like, it's really about parsing through issues of the culture. I make a lot of comedy videos. I make a lot of conversational and commentary videos. And those are very intentional. The comedy, because I think our culture is ridiculous. And I think it's funny to poke fun at those things. But the conversation is really what my heart is. It's like, hey, I want to tell you the truth behind what you're seeing. Everything is not as it seems. So I'm really interested in that multi-layered type of content. And I think that's what I've been gifted to do.
That's beautiful. And I love your videos. I think they're hilarious. And also, exactly like you said, like, you're just you. And the reason that I connected with your videos, and I feel like people are connecting with your videos, is like you said, you talked about creating from when you were feeling empty, and or not as high energy, not as full of abundance, not as connected to God, who is the ultimate creator. So of course,
absolutely,
staying connected with the creator is going to be completely different. Like, it's going to completely change and transform the way that you look at creativity and the way that you go about being a creative and an artist. So I love that. I think that what you said about, really being filled and being high energy, even maybe you didn't feel like it, but I think because you were still taking those steps of consistency, like you said, that discipline of like being consistent, and I think I started seeing your videos probably more recently, and not as many of your early videos, but like the way that you speak even now, but even in your videos as well, like it's with such conviction. And that's where the energy is. It's that like, what you're talking about, and you're genuinely curious about what you're like the conversation you're starting, like, and it comes across, and that genuineness, again, that genuine attitude, and then that conviction of like, I know what I'm believing, I know what I believe, and I'm okay with my questions, and I'm okay with,
Mm.
starting this conversation. That makes it more interesting, and that makes people connect. That made me connect, because I was like, wow,
Oh,
she
thank
she
you.
knows who she is,
Yeah.
and the things that she doesn't know about, she's okay with that, and she's able to ask questions. And why shouldn't she be? Because we're all human, and we're all learning and growing together. So I love that, and I love that
Yeah.
you had the courage to put yourself out there like that, because it's not easy. But when you have that conviction of like, oh no, this is how I want to, this is what my art is going to be. I'm not going to be someone that I'm not a preacher. That's not who God is calling me to be. I know where my giftings are, and I know that I want to grow in them, and I want to put
Mm.
them to use. And so from there, that's that's what I think, that's also what draws me to you, is that, or draws people to you, is that you're willing to go there and have that courage to really be yourself fully. So I love that. Thank you for
Oh,
sharing that.
that's so kind. Thank you. That's very, very kind. I also wonder from your perspective, Estelle, because you work with a
Mhm,
lot of people who are starting this journey.
mhm,
What have you noticed in the people that maybe are taking those first steps? Like if you've seen people at
mhm.
the beginning of their journey, what are you
Yeah.
noticing as I guess, a consistent character trait across all of those people?
Yeah. I mean, I started with myself when I was first starting this. I was just thinking back to when I was, starting to say like, oh, I think I want to pursue, like after college. I was like, oh, I want to like start auditioning, and like start doing theater again. I think I hadn't
Mhm.
really done it since high school. And I was like, I want to start doing it again. I want to start dancing more consistently. I danced a little bit in college, but I was like, I want to take
Mm.
a dance class. And immediately fear, right? And I'm like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, what will people think? And then when I talk to um, people that I've interviewed on the show who can think back to when they were starting,
Yeah.
or they were starting again, whatever their situation was. When I talk to people who are singing, taking voice lessons with me, who are like, I'm just starting to sing again, like, or like, I really want to take my voice more seriously. Like, I've always loved to sing, but like, it's really fear and like lack of confidence in yourself. And that expectation that you have to be perfect from the very beginning, or like that you have to
Mm.
be like,
That part.
if you are not belting like the biggest Tony Award winning Broadway star today, there's no point in even trying.
It's so that's how it feels sometimes. That's how it
It does.
feels.
It feels high stakes. It really does feel that way. And I'm not saying that to mock, because like that's literally like me. Like that's literally
Yeah.
like what I was thinking. It's like, if I'm not going to be like the number one dancer, like why start taking a dance
Mm.
class? But
Mm.
like, of course, but I knew in my mind, like that's not logical. Like, of course you have to start somewhere. But
Yeah.
in our emotions, we feel like, what do people say? Like, I'm going to look ridiculous. Like,
Mm.
I'm a grown woman. I want to start taking dance classes again. Like,
Yeah.
no, you think it's fear, and it's doubt, and it's thinking that you have to be perfect from the beginning.
Mm.
And that sometimes is something that holds us back from really starting to embrace and use our creative gifts, and just grow in them, whatever that looks like. So yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
great question. I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
had a friend say that one time. She said, "I always remember that I'm a beginner." And
Mm,
she's well advanced in her career, but she was saying, "I always remember I'm a beginner because if you
mhm.
treat yourself as a beginner, you'll give yourself grace in the
Yeah,
process of learning something." And now, whenever I learn something new, I that's exactly how I feel. I'm like, I'm a beginner. It's okay.
yeah,
I'm a beginner.
yeah, yeah. And it makes you love the process more. Like, I, the way I like my voice. I love my voice,
Hmm.
like my singing voice, a
Hmm.
lot more now than I did when I took voice lessons in college. I grew up singing my whole life, but after college, when I was like, I'm gonna be intentional about like growing my voice and like working on my belt and my vibrato and all these things. And I was like, oh, like I don't sound the way I want to sound. And like I would
Mm.
compare myself to other people's voices and stuff. And then I was like, that's not gonna get me anywhere. I have to be okay with just like letting these expectations go, and just be okay with like, try one day after the other, record yourself, listen back, what do we need to change? What do we need to do differently? How can we take
Yeah.
better care of our voice care, stuff like that.
Mm.
And now like I'm not a perfect singer. I still have so much, like there's so much more I want to do and I want to grow in, but I like my singing voice now. And that, not that I think it's perfect, but I like how I've grown and I like the pace that I'm growing. And I
Mm.
like, I just like the process of singing now. It's just so much more fun when you're
Yeah.
not like putting all this pressure on being the best right away. So
Good. That's good.
yeah. Yeah. I love that. That was such a good question. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could talk forever. Um,
Yeah.
but switching gears a little bit, I do definitely want to go into redemption media because you talked
Mm.
about how you knew that producing these videos, what you talked about like multi-layer production
Mhm.
and really combining all parts of yourself. And I feel like that's kind of like what, from what I've seen a little bit of, that's
Mhm.
kind of what redemption media could be, or as like maybe something that you have um in mind for redemption media. So tell everyone what redemption media is. I've said it 50,000 times for some reason, but
No, you're
I
good.
love the name. I love the name so much.
Thank
Tell
you.
everyone
Thank
what it
you.
is and what sparked it, like what started it for you.
Yeah. Yes. Redemption in Media. It is a company, a film production company that I started. And I'm going to be honest here, Estelle. I'm always honest, but I'm going to especially be honest here. This is a long time making. What's that phrase when they say it's a long time coming? Yeah, a long time coming. I know what I was saying. A long time coming. In the sense that I when I first picked up a camera, I had 0% idea that I'd want to make films. That was not even in my mindset. I was never someone who was like, I'm going to be a filmmaker. Like that wasn't it. I was going to be on Broadway. That was the dream. And I'll never forget, it's just so crazy how God works because I love that he connects the dots of everything in your life. He only gives you a little piece of the vision, and then there are other people along the way that have other pieces. So redemption in media is really a puzzle that is just slowly coming together as I've been praying about what is it that God wants me to do? Like, what's my purpose on earth? You know, those types of questions that we ask ourselves. So what's our calling? What are we called to? It's amazing to me that right now I sit in a place before you completely earnestly that God has given me this vision for a film company that tells stories and makes movies and makes films that are nuanced, that are redemptive at their core, meaning they always circle back to healing and hope, but not cheesy. Okay. I don't want cheesy Christian films. I don't want, no shade to Fireproof or to the War Rooms or the God's Not Dead. But that is not what we're doing with redemption in media. Redemption in media is exactly what it sounds like. I want us to create high quality, nuanced, transformative pieces that really speak to the heart of who we are, and they're not going to always be overtly Christian in their pieces. I want them to be stories and art first, and then message second, and that's my goal. So the hope is that we can create and collect artists that are coming from a place of healing. What a concept to create art and media and film, not from brokenness, not from I have lost my entire marbles and now I'm going to give that dysfunction to you, but rather give people something they can actually eat from, that they can consume and leave changed. So that is my very poetic way of talking about redemption in media. It is a film production company that focuses on artistic, nuanced, transformative films that are stories of hope without being cheesy.
That's so beautiful. And there's so much I want to say. First of all, I'm sorry, I said the name wrong. But
That's
redemption
okay.
in media, guys,
That's
not
okay.
redemption
That's okay.
media.
I don't have
Um,
redemption media, unfortunately. Somebody else purchased that before me.
okay,
But
that was
redemption in media.
yeah, guys, that's the Instagram handle. So go follow Redemption
Yes.
Media. So
Yes.
that's why it was like in my mind, I could just see the Instagram
No
handle.
problem. Redemption in media
But
is yes.
yes. And that's so beautiful. I love the like we love a good God's Not Dead, but I love what you're
We
saying.
love a good God's Not Dead. Oh Lord, they're gonna come for me. They're gonna come for me on the podcast.
No, like I love what you're saying so much because there's space for it all. Like there is room for some people will connect with certain things better than other things. That's art. Like there is
Totally.
room for it all. And but what you're like talking about is something that isn't really out there like as much. It's not really seen as much. So I love
Mm.
that. That's something that could be truly that could be amazing. Like that's amazing. Like that is like a movement. Like I love that.
We do love
And
a
the
good
idea of,
movement.
yes, we love a good movement. We love a redemptive story.
Yes.
And I love that about coming from a place of healing.
Mm.
Because we are all in need of healing. We all have parts of us that have been broken, but healing is, it's what we all want. We all aspire to, to have that, to really not just be redeemed through Christ, but to have
Mm.
that, like, living out our redemption and living out our healing. And
Yes.
so to have stories that come from, like, that really point to that and point to that redemption and that hope, that's what we're all looking for, especially coming out of COVID. Like, we are looking for,
Yeah.
continuing to look for hope, continuing to look for redemption. So I love that. That's beautiful. And I'm just so excited to see where it goes. And I love what you said about it being like a long time coming, kind of patching it together as you go. Again, it goes back to that not being afraid to start a little bit imperfectly or start messy or to be a
Yes.
beginner. You know, you weren't like, oh, sorry, I can't do it, God, until it's like absolutely perfect, until I know everything, every single film that
Yeah.
will ever be made in this company.
Right.
Until I know that, I'm sorry, we're not starting anything. But you still started. And I
Yeah.
love that. I love helping people get started. I love seeing, the beginning days, the
Mm.
beginning of things, because I believe that when you can start with that drive, with that passion, with that, and then continue with consistency,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a beautiful ending. And so I love this so much. That's
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you. Thank you very
Mm,
much.
I'm so excited to see where it goes.
Me
So
too,
what are
girl. Me too.
so what are some things that you have coming up, um, in redemption in media? What are things that you're looking forward to as a creative?
Yeah.
Things that you're looking forward to creating?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am so Redemption in Media is just starting, and we are currently really working on a short film that we're going to produce in 2023. So it'll be the first project on the Redemption in Media label, and it's actually we're basing it off of my personal testimony, which is a series that I had
Mm,
released on my YouTube channel called Fear and Trembling. It's a scripture I'm very fond of, but it's also the piece was kind of a mix of, it started off with a horror piece, it moved into more like a surrealism, absurdist, and then it went into like a film noir style. And I filmed it in my house. I did it all in here with some green screens and a lot of lights, and a lot of talking to myself. And the truth is, I wanted to tell the story of redemption in my own life, specifically coming out of sexual redemption and into what God was really calling me into in terms of wholeness. And I was like, I wanted to sit down and just tell the story. And God was like, no, 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 we're going to do something different. And it's really probably the thing I'm most proud of in terms of my personal, professional, creative work, because it was so like, it just flowed out, if that makes any sense. I don't know if you've ever had a creative project that you're just like, it just came out. You didn't have to really think about it. It wasn't effortless, but it was ease. There was a sense of ease with it. So that's the piece. We're going to be reformatting that, re-scripting it. And I'm working with a team now to kind of work that through. But yeah, we had our fundraiser to start the company. And that's really where this all began. I did a fundraiser and I was like, all right, Lord, like I'm going to try this thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done a fundraiser before, but we're going to see what happens. And my goal is $5,000 to start. And we raised over $6,000 in 21 days. It was an amazing God moment. And I'm still like overwhelmed by it, to be honest. But once I saw that, I was like, oh, this thing has legs. And not only does it have legs, but apparently I'm not the only one that feels this way. So Redemption in Media is beginning in that spirit of like, we are fully submitted to God in the process. And we believe He will open the doors. He's going to bring the money. He's going to provide. And we're just going to step out with it. Personally, I am doing Vlogmas this year, if you know what that is. It's a YouTube challenge where you drop a video a day. I did it last year. It was insane, but I'm going to do it again this year because I love the way it shoves me out of thinking and overthinking and just creating content, just because I love it, and comedy and stuff. So you'll hear some interesting things on my YouTube channel, including a video entitled Why I No Longer Watch Slave Films, and such some of my thoughts around the media landscape as it is right now.
I love that so much. And I can't wait to check out your YouTube channel. And
Yes.
we're gonna, yeah, we'll get all your details for links and everything because
Sure.
everyone needs to go find you, check you out, and consume all of your content. But
Yes.
um yeah, before we get into like the links and everything, just a couple more things. So
Sure.
for I know you said you're starting to audition again.
Yes.
And that's awesome. And I love that you have this, you know, you have this film that you're doing, like you're creating, you're in this process of creating, which is awesome. But
Yeah.
for anyone who is starting, I always ask a question of like one piece of advice for people who are just starting, but I'll get to that in a second. But just like before we get to that, like a precursor to that,
Hmm.
um, as you're starting to audition, maybe starting to act again, for people who are looking to start acting, looking to start auditioning, do you have any like just tips, anything, any words of inspiration, whether it comes to mindset or the
Mm,
practicality of auditioning and starting to act and perform, especially in
yeah.
front of a camera, which is like the
Especially in front of the
main
camera.
way of doing it? Do you
Yeah.
have anything to that that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I like to say like an untrained actor is a bad actor. Um, there are so many stories of people who are natural talents, you know, the Will Smiths and the Aaron Pauls and all these folks who are really incredible without training, or they didn't have a lot of training. Don't be that person. Go get trained. I love the idea of going into class, even just to see what technique looks like, because the truth is, technique is what you can build upon with your own natural gift and talent. But you don't want to be out there naturally gifted and talented and then miss maybe what the technique person does. Personally, technique is sustainable. Natural talent gives out, especially if you're tired. So get some, go to class, take an acting class. There are so many resources online. Another thing I really enjoy is Facebook groups for, you know, different things in certain locales. Like, you know, this, Estelle, you don't have to live in LA or New York anymore to film or audition for TV. You could be in your local Ohio or Idaho or wherever and record from your home and take classes even from your home. And so that's a benefit, is to be able to take classes and also audition. And I would say the third like major tip for anybody who's just starting in the acting world is to watch a lot of quality films, quality actors, kind of see what it is that makes them so compelling. Write your notes down, like be a good student of even just, because that's free. That's a free class, right? You don't have to pay anybody for that, to watch movies and just take from their process and what they're doing. I've learned a lot from watching, and mimicry was really how I first started to like speak the way that I do and create the way that I do, is by watching other people. So those are my tips.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that because I definitely, I like, I can speak for myself, just being completely honest. Like, I definitely want to get into class
Yes.
acting wise and stuff. So, like, I know I need to further my training. So, thank you for being that, like, real time, like, this is the truth.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate that because it's true. Like, we need to continue our training as artists, especially whether it's in dance, like get in dance class, singing, get in a voice lesson every now and
Yeah.
then. Work with a teacher, work with someone, a friend who can help you grow as a singer, right? Whether when it's acting, like get started going to class. Like that's
Yes,
it. Like,
please.
thank you so much for sharing that. It's so true.
Sure.
There's so much, and I love what you said about like mimicry, like learning from people and like seeing, observing, and not just like watching, like, to watch, but like
Yeah.
genuinely like observing the people that you want to be, like you want a career, or you want to just play roles in a similar way that they do. I love
Yes.
that. It's great advice. Thank you.
Sure.
We can move on to the last question, one of my favorite questions, because it just always sparks such a good conversation, just such great, inspiring, but also tactical help for people. So if you could give someone, just like someone who, just picture them like they are at the cusp of like starting to, okay, I think I'm gonna go take an acting class. Okay, I think I'm
Mm,
gonna go audition for this thing. I haven't auditioned in a while. It's been a while since COVID or whatever. Or maybe they grew up in the arts, they loved dancing, and now they're like, okay, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 20s, I want to start dancing again. Everyone's
mm,
gonna think I'm weird and crazy, but I
mm.
just I just know that I love to do this. I know I have this gifting and I want to work on it. I want to train. What is it that you would tell someone who maybe has these limiting beliefs, these fears,
Mm.
this lack of confidence because they know they're, they feel like they're at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them now, just to light that fire in them, just to help them in whatever way?
Ooh, I might,
Yeah,
I might
take a
hurt.
second.
I
Okay, okay.
might, I
Oh,
might hurt your
okay.
feelings. I
I
mean,
love this.
um, there's so many ways I could say this, but I'm gonna say it straight, Estelle. Get over yourself. I think if you are holding yourself back because of the way that you're thinking about it, there is somebody else waiting for you to take that step. And you're being incredibly selfish by hoarding all of that good impetus, that push to yourself. If you step out and do it, somebody's going to see you take that step and say, I'm going to step out because they stepped out. Get over yourself.
Let's say it together, everyone. Get
Get
over
over yourself.
yourself.
And I mean
Are
that in
you
the
sure you're not a
most.
preacher? Like that felt very like
Did it feel
get
preachy,
over,
Lord?
not in like the best way, like in the
In like the
best, like
most loving, gentle way.
yes,
I
yes.
truly mean that, because the truth is, so many of
Mm.
us want to be pat on the back and told your fear is okay. Your fear is not okay. It's actually holding someone else behind doors that you could open. You know what I'm saying? So like,
Absolutely.
push those doors open. Open not just for yourself, but for other people. If you won't do it for you, do it for someone that's watching you. That's
I
how I
love
feel.
that. That's amazing. Literally, we could just end there, but we need everyone to get to know where they can find you, so we won't. But like
Yes.
that is so good because, guys, like if I like seeing someone like Tiffany putting herself out there online as an actor, as a creative who loves God, who's a woman of color, Black woman, like for me, inspiring. For me,
Oh,
I'm sure
same.
so many people see you and are like, oh, maybe I have a gift that I can start to do something with. And so that idea of
Yes.
getting over yourself, your fears, they don't have the final say. They really don't.
No, they don't.
They really don't. And so I love that. Thank you so much. And really that idea of
Yeah.
like being selfless. There's
Yes.
an episode that I had in the show called Is It Selfish to Be Creative? One of the most listened to,
Mm.
most downloaded episodes of the show. And the first line is like of the title is it selfish to be creative?
Mm.
And so many people resonated with that idea of like feeling like using their gifts is selfish.
Mm.
Meanwhile, you're turning that on its head and saying, no, like
Oh,
not using it is selfish because
absolutely. And it's biblical, Estelle. It's biblical. I didn't
yes,
even come up with that. That's what the
yes.
Bible says. It says don't bury your talent. And I know we
Mm,
talents as in money, right? But your talents, your gifts, how dare you bury what the creator put in you? If he put that in you, he must have thought it was valuable.
yeah.
Don't sit on top of it. That's just where I sit with that. I will, that's the hill I'm gonna die. That's the hill I'm gonna die on. You can name this podcast Get Over. No, I'm just kidding. But
I
truly,
love
I
that.
mean that. I really do mean that with the most love and sincerity.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that touched
Yeah.
someone that touched me. Like I pray that spoke to someone and just like push them to take the next step. That's awesome.
Yes, we love
Thank you so
that.
much.
No
Tell
problem.
everyone,
Thank you.
yes, yes. Tell everyone where they can find you, where they can
Yes.
find Redemption in Media, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Where they can connect with you
Period.
and engage with all the things you're doing, all the amazing things. Please tell us.
Yes. So Tiffany Byrd Harrison is on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the things. And that's Bird with a Y. And Redemption in Media, Redemption in media.com is my website, as well as Redemption in Media on Instagram. You can also check me out in either of those places.
Yay, 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 yay. I love it. I'll put everything in the show notes. So everyone better go. Please go follow
Woo-hoo.
and find Tiffany and just keep up with her and let her know what you thought of the episode. Thank you
Please.
so much. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Oh
You
my
are a
gosh.
gem.
Bless you for having me. This is so encouraging and very humbling. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. I feel so encouraged and humble just to be able to talk to you. So thank you.
No problem.
Alrighty. See ya.
Bye.
Okay, guys, wasn't that amazing? Go follow Tiffany on all the things and make sure you keep up with her. Thank you for being on the show, Tiffany. That was incredible. Here are 3 key takeaways from this conversation. 1, pivot your perspective from fear of failing to failing fast, learning as you go, and being a beginner. 2, commit to being an artist and trust God with your path. And 3, someone is waiting for your creativity on the other side of your fear. All right. Thank you for being here. As always, I really appreciate you. And if you can think of one person who would be inspired by this episode, screenshot this, post it, share this with someone, because you never know how you can impact someone's day today. All right. Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Creatively Performing Arts podcast. I hope you feel encouraged, inspired, and truly impacted by today's episode. And if you can think of one person who would love this show, please share this episode with a friend. And if you wouldn't mind going to Apple Podcasts and leaving a review and rating, it will take 30 seconds and it would truly immensely help this show grow and reach more people who need to use their creative gifts as well. And finally, go to the Performing Arts community on Facebook and join this online free community for you to interact with and connect with other artists. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much, and I will talk to you later.